Hello everyone, how's it going? Welcome to B Productions. My name is Franco, and yeah, I guess we could say this is the start of a new era in a sense. So B Productions is my video production company. We do video advertisements for people. I've done it in the past, I'll keep doing it, but this series is not actually going to have so much to do with that. It's going to be more about traveling, because I have been traveling for the past about 4 years. I've been having like a work and holiday experience in first New Zealand and then Australia, and I've always enjoyed having my own YouTube channel and just somewhere kind of to vent, to talk about things that I've learned, and just to I just love making videos. It's not just for money, it's for love as well. And I was thinking, there's a few things that I can talk about that I have a little bit of experience in, one of them being photography, videography, maybe some social media stuff, but the one that really differentiates me from other people are my travels, because I've had a lot of experiences that not many people have had, and I've noticed I feel a bit weird sometimes talking about this with people, because I don't know, I've lived it for so long that it kind of became like normal for me, and sometimes I forget the value that there is in it. And it's also good for me. It's also good for me to go over the stuff that I've been through, to go over what I've learned, and what I've learned that maybe I wouldn't do the same next time, or maybe I would do it the same next time. So yeah, I'm gonna start a series just talking about this. If you want to watch the visuals, I have done cinematic videos and stuff like that, so that's all on my channel, you can go have a look. But this series is done mostly for young people that don't really know what to do with their life, and they're thinking about maybe starting a career or starting university, and they're not sure that what they're doing is actually what they want to do. And yeah, I just want to give them, just plant this little seed in their head that traveling might be the solution to, not all, of course, but some of their problems at least. So yeah, having that said, let's talk about me. Yeah, this is interesting, to say the least. Interesting. I don't know how it will go. Hopefully it goes well. But yeah, my name is Franco. Many of you know me, many of you don't, but I am an Argentinian guy. I am 22 years old at the time of recording. I've lived in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, for the first 18 years of my life. And when I finished high school, just like most people, I don't know if most people, but just like a lot of people, I was thinking about what university I wanted to go into. And I was this close to going into informatics, or I don't know what you would call it in English, but let's just say IT. And on the other hand, I was thinking about cinema, which is a completely different thing, but informatics nowadays has a little bit of a better reputation in some sense, like you can make more money off of it. So I was really close to studying that. But my mother talked to me about my cousin who had done work and holiday in Australia, and she asked me if that would be something that I would be interested in, and I said yes. I just said yes, as if someone offered me an ice cream, and I was just like, do you want an ice cream? And I was like, yeah, I'll have an ice cream. And it was weird because it was very casual. So originally I was meant to go to Australia, but that was the year that all the bushfires happened and all of that. So with the same casualty that I used to decide to go to Australia, I decided to go to New Zealand instead. And it was weird because it didn't feel hard. I was not sure about what I wanted to do, so I was like, I've always wanted to travel. It's always been something that's been in my plans. Until 18, I wouldn't say that we have traveled much. So we would go a lot to Bariloche, which is in Patagonia, which is a beautiful location. But we haven't traveled much outside of Argentina. Not that we haven't traveled at all, but we haven't traveled much. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity for me. Because the other thing is, the times that I have traveled outside of my country, many times it was with people, and we were traveling not in a way that was really as appealing to me. I wanted to really get more into the culture. I wanted to suck the juice out of it a little bit more. And yeah, I thought this was my chance, because I was going to be traveling alone. I did ask my friends to join me. Everyone said no. So yeah, it was a big opportunity for me. I've always wanted to travel, as I said. And I also had a few personal reasons, which I might get into in a future video. Some negative reasons that were honestly not good reasons to start traveling. So yeah, I'm not just going to sell you traveling as the best thing in the world. I'm going to talk about all the negatives as well in this video and in future videos. But yeah, that's pretty much the start of my story. So now let's go into what do I mean by traveling, because traveling, like everything, it's a skill. There's different levels to it. There's different ways to do it. There's different outcomes that can come depending on how we do our travels. So the basic level of traveling is the one that most people know. It's depending if you go to university or if you work, you might have 2 or a few weeks a year where you go traveling. You pay to go somewhere, you go to a hotel. I guess the most cliche option would be people that go to Cancun in Mexico and they just spend the whole time in a hotel and they barely go out, right? Or for example, we had an experience when we went to France and we just went from place to place super quickly. We spent, I think, like 15 minutes in the Arc de Triomphe, or however you say that, and then we spent like 15 minutes in the Eiffel Tower. It was packed with people. You know, that's the classical one, the touristy one, the one where everyone's there with their cameras, and it's better than nothing. I mean, it's not bad per se, but you're really missing out on what really makes that certain culture that culture, and you're really missing out on a lot of personal growth, and you're not really resting, which is kind of the worst thing. You go for 2 weeks and you're probably more tired than you were when you left, so you kind of need to take a rest from those 2 weeks, right? So maybe you need 2 more weeks to calm down, to get back into the mood to start working, and then maybe you've lost 4 weeks where you just had 2 weeks of enjoyment, but even those 2 weeks maybe could have felt very stressful because you need to take the bus on time, you need to get here, you need to get there, everything is planned, there's no freedom, and you didn't really get much out of it. It's kind of a lot of effort, a lot of money for little results. So you could say the ROI is not the best. Then there's the second one, which is traveling with a bit of a lower budget, so a bit more, we would say gasolero in Argentina, so it just means not as much luxury. And ironically, traveling is one of those things where often, not always, there's caveats to this, but often the less money you put into it, the better your experience, which is a really good thing that we will get into the future. So yeah, the next level would be traveling with less money, maybe backpacking or something like that with a friend or with your couple or whatever. This one's also really good. It can take to This one, yes, can lead to a lot of personal development, a lot of learning experiences, and also a lot of experiences about growing up, because I'm making these videos in big part for young people. So if maybe you've lived with your parents for a long time, this will really help you to grow up in a really fast way. It will help you to be independent, and yeah, there's many benefits to it. But then the next one is pretty much the same thing, only we're doing this alone. It's solo traveling. And this is almost a spiritual experience, if I'm being honest with you guys. So traveling alone does not mean we do not talk with anyone and we are completely antisocial. That's actually the opposite of what we want to do. We want to constantly be, as cliche as it sounds, it's true, we constantly want to be getting out of our comfort zones. We constantly want to be arriving in places where we don't know everyone, and every time practice our muscles of making new friends. And then maybe it's like, okay, I arrived alone, but now I've made these friends and now I'm going to travel with these friends until here. Then these friends want to go somewhere else where I don't really want to go. So there I exercise my right to freedom, or whatever you want to say, and I decide I'm going this place instead. And then maybe I make new friends there, and it's beautiful. It has many of the same benefits as the one I've mentioned previously, but many of the effects are exaggerated a little bit more, right? So you really depend on yourself for this one. No one's going to help you, and of course that leads to a lot of personal growth. It leads to learning a lot about ourselves and seeing that we're capable of so much more than we think. I'll get more into this in the future, but even when you've reached what for many people is the worst spot you could be in, you'll see that even that is not as bad as people say. So yeah, and then the last step, and maybe the god of this world, would be the digital nomad, right? So this is a bit of a cliche at this point, the person living in Bali, who's an influencer or who's working on a blog or whatever. And I gotta be completely honest with you guys, I don't completely like this, at least this stereotype, because I haven't been in Bali, but I just imagine everyone being together doing exactly the same thing, pretending like the original. But there's many different variations to this, as always. You don't need to be in the cliche. You can do your own thing. You can do something that's different. And there's many different ways to do this. You can work for a company, and maybe this company sends you to a different country and you work remotely. You can live in a place that's not Bali, for starters. But yeah, it's good, because the difference with this one and the one I've mentioned previously is that in the one I've mentioned previously, and I'll get more into this in the future, you're not really building a legacy. You're not building anything up. And this is one of the negative sides of this. And I'll just say something real quick. The way we start something, if we're not careful, is often what's going to define our priorities. And this goes both ways. So if you're not sure about what to do with your life and you decide to study, chances are you're setting yourself up for a life of working, maybe a 9-to-5 job, doing something that you don't enjoy, just so that you can enjoy those few weeks at the end of the year, or just so that you can enjoy your retirement when you're 60. So you're kind of paying with the best years of your life to then enjoy at the end of your life. And you're not really going to enjoy it because you're old. You can't change a mindset that you have been dragging with you for so long. And I know it sounds ridiculous, me saying this at this age, but I really do believe this. And if anyone can talk about this from experience, I would love them to leave it down in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I'm open to the idea that I might be wrong. But this is not just my opinion, it's the opinion of many people. We hear life regrets like this all the time. So that's just we would play games about who has less money in the bank account. And it was fun for me because I was 20-something years old. But when you're 30, you kind of want to have something set up. You want to have a family and kids. You want to have a little bit of money at least. So yeah, there's many people that get into this backpacker mentality of traveling and they never get out, and that's almost just as sad as the opposite. So digital nomad, I think, is a pretty good combination of the good part of traveling and also the good part of a normal lifestyle where you actually are building a legacy. When you finish working for 3 months in an orchard, you're not starting from scratch in a different orchard, but no matter where you are, you keep building the one thing, which is either your business or maybe you're working for someone else. That's completely fine. But yeah, I think it combines a bit the positives of both worlds. And yeah, those are the main differences. Therefore, at least for now, I might go developing this more in the future as this channel keeps moving forward. And I am mostly going to talk about the second and the third form of traveling, because those are the ones I have the most experience in. My 4 years have been basically of that. On the last maybe 3 months, I've started to develop my digital nomadness, if you want. And I'm in the process of building it up right now. That's part of what this video actually is. But yeah, I can share with you the process of how that goes. But if I'm going to talk about stuff that I've accomplished, in a sense, I'm mostly going to talk about the second and fourth and third form of traveling. Let's get into why you should travel. And I've talked about this a little bit already. I have followed the advice of spending at least 3 months in a different location before I move, and the difference between this and spending a few weeks is it's not even comparable. It's like comparing a Ferrari with a Ford T, you know. It's like it's crazy. It's good, and I might go into this in future videos, but for me, time now is kind of divided in either 3 months or 6 months, and there's nothing else than that. 3 months is the minimum amount of time that it has taken me to kind of really get a learning experience out of something. And 6 months is oftentimes the maximum amount of time. And after that, it's not like you won't get any learning experience, but you'll get a lot of diminished returns, and that might be a good spot to change up location. But this is something that I'm still testing. I'm 22 years old, guys. I'm not pretending to be a wise 70-year-old. Some of the stuff I'm testing, I'm talking about stuff that I have done, but I'm also talking about stuff that I'm doing right now and stuff that I'm experimenting with right now. So let's talk about money, and I'll go more into this in future videos. But one of the biggest and quickest excuses to appear when one talks about traveling is money. And weirdly enough, it's one of the stupidest excuses, because oftentimes when we do this, not only do we not spend as much money as people think, we oftentimes make money, or at least we save more money. So this is a concept that Tim Ferriss talks about in his book, and I'm sure it exists from before, and it's geo-arbitrage. So, for example, in my case, being an Argentinian, I don't know if you know the situation in Argentina, but at the time of recording, I think we have like 115% inflation per year. And I just heard today that next year it might rise to 1,500. So we're a little bit fucked, to be honest. And traveling to Australia gave me the opportunity to earn in dollars, as well as earning in dollars in New Zealand. And yes, it costed about $500 to get the visa. It was about, I think, $1,600 to get the plane ticket to get there, and it was about $2,600 to get back. So there is a cost involved. But once you get there, you get a job, and you get a job very easily in first world countries. And when I talk about this with people in Argentina, I'm a little bit baffled, because they talk about the risk of getting there and not being able to get a job, and it's like, man, you'll probably get a job quicker there than you will get in a country like Argentina. And it goes the other way as well. So that was going from a third world country to a first world country. Now I can talk about going from a first world country to a third world country, because now I came back. I'm currently in my room in Argentina, and coming back, I have the money that I've saved, and this is not to boast, and for some people maybe it's not a lot of money, but I've saved about $10,000. So I've arrived in New Zealand with about 3,000 New Zealand dollars, and I came back with about 10,000 Australian dollars. So you can make the currency exchange and you can compare it to US dollars, whatever. And I've also not been the best saver at all. I've been pretty terrible with money at times, and even with all of that, I've saved about $10,000. For example, a quarter kilogram of ice cream costs 1.5, I think it's about 1.5, the equivalent of $1.5, right? Whereas in Australia, it might cost $16 to $18, which maybe is like 6 or 7 US dollars. So not only do you come back with more money than you left with, but that money is suddenly worth not double, but like sometimes 3 times, 3, 4, 5 times more than it was worth in the country where you earned that money. You can buy a house for $150,000, the equivalent of $150,000. For an Argentinian, that's a lot of money, but for a foreigner, that's really, really cheap. And it's kind of sad, being an Argentinian myself, to see that the reason this happens is because our country is doing so bad economically. But at the same time, who says you can't take advantage of that? Who says you can't, as an Argentinian, try to get a job outside, or as a foreigner, decide that maybe you don't need to live in the same country you grew up in. Maybe you can live somewhere else and just investigate that country, because many people have a view of countries like Argentina as this place that's going to the shits. And economically speaking, it's true. And it's true that there's security issues that are bigger than in other countries, but it doesn't mean that we're in a war zone. You can still live a normal life, and people, like, I don't know, about 60 million people? I think about 60 million people still live here. Just check it out, mate. When I was in Australia and in New Zealand, I've met so many people that are traveling from third world countries, be it in South America or Asia or Africa. And those people, oftentimes, they traveled with $800 or less in their bank account. And oftentimes when they were already in the process of traveling, they had $0 in their bank account. And it's not just other people, myself as well. I've had $0 in my bank account, or close to zero, maybe $1.70 or stuff like that. I've lost count, but I think between 4 and 6 times in my life. And going back to what I'm going to talk about in the future, life didn't end. Life didn't end, life went on. I was able to make that money back, and here I am. Traveling opens your mind. We all know it opens our mind, but it's very different saying something than actually experiencing it. And if it's so true that it opens our mind and that it adorns the mind and that it used to be considered a form of studying, as it said in the quote, why is it so low on our priority list? Why do we reserve it for just a few weeks a year, or maybe when we are already old and retired? Why don't we spread that out and try to get these mini retirements that Tim Ferriss is talking about? Why? I really don't understand it. Traveling can really open your mind, and it can really, you can learn things about yourself that you didn't even know were possible. You learn that you're so much more resilient, and you're capable of so much more than you originally thought you were capable of doing. You mature so quickly. You're kind of speed running life, and I'm going to talk about that in future videos as well. And yeah, I just really think you should try it. And I'm gonna try not to preach it as a religion. So if you are really clear on what you want to do with your life and it's not traveling, good for you. I also met many people that are just not interested in leaving their home country, and they love their country, and that's great. That's great, really. I love my country as well, but obviously I have no problem leaving it. So yeah, this video, if it resonated with you, that's great. If it didn't, that's fine as well. It's not meant to resonate with the whole world. I also want to talk about something that my grandmother used to say, and she was quoting some interesting figure from, she says it was Argentinian history. I'm not sure. It could have been Napoleon, because I've heard this quote being said either from Rosas, which is our important figure, or Napoleon. But he would, when they would dress him for battle, he would say, "Dress me slowly that I'm in a hurry." And this applies to life as well. When we don't know what to do and we just rush into something, oftentimes we end up making mistakes, and not small mistakes. They're big, potentially life-regretting mistakes. As I said earlier, the way we start doing something is oftentimes the way we set our priorities subconsciously. So traveling is a way of stepping back from your life, stepping back from all this stuff that was fed into us from kids. We have this paradigm that was given to us because of the people we grew up with, the place we went to school, the place we lived in, the country we lived in, the neighborhood we lived in. And a way to get out of these paradigms and learn things from other places is by going to other places and realizing that maybe the way all of my friends do something is not the way I have to do it. And whatever I want to do, chances are there is someone else in the world that's already doing that, and that's really comforting for one, because then you notice that you're not alone. Take life a little bit slower, maybe. Think more, take more conscious decisions about what you're doing with your life. See if this is really something you want or it's not, and if it's not, that's fine. It was a pleasure meeting you. I'll see you in the next one. This is a quote from myself, something that I wrote down. I don't want to paraphrase it. I want to say it exactly how I wrote it. But it says, the more we rush life, the more mistakes, big life-regretting mistakes we make. So the privilege to be able to learn from how the rest of the world operates outside of your bubble is something we shouldn't take for granted or leave for last second. We should take it seriously. And maybe, just maybe, we might learn more about ourselves and reach our potential in the process. Or just keep doing what you're doing. I don't care.